I spent 23 years catching financial criminals for the FBI. Never thought the next one would be my own stepson. After my wife passed, Marcus took control of Stepson Industries and told me I'd be the first one out the door. He had no idea I'd just discovered $2.8 million in dirty money flowing through the company she built. In chess, a pawn can become a queen when it reaches the end of the board, and this old detective was about to make his move. This story has more twists than a federal wire operation, and trust me, I've run plenty of those. If you've ever lived in a city with an FBI field office, drop the name below and hit subscribe, because justice never retires. My name is Luca Reynolds, and 3 weeks ago, I buried my wife Sarah after 32 years of marriage. Stepson Industries, the logistics company she founded in 1998, was supposed to be our legacy. Instead, it became my nightmare. The funeral was on a Tuesday. By Friday, Marcus Stepson, Sarah's son from her first marriage, had installed himself as CEO and changed every lock in the building. I found out when my key card stopped working at 3:15 p.m., right in front of the entire accounting staff. "Sorry, Luca," Marcus said, not looking sorry at all as he emerged from what used to be my office. "New management means new policies. We're restructuring the CFO position." I'd been the chief financial officer for 8 years, ever since Sarah convinced me to leave the bureau early and help run the family business. Stepson Industries was worth $6.8 million, built from nothing through Sarah's determination and my financial expertise. Now, Marcus stood in my doorway like he owned the place. "Restructuring?" I kept my voice level, the way I used to when questioning suspects. "What exactly does that mean?" Marcus smiled, the same cold expression I'd seen on plenty of criminals over the years. "It means we're bringing in fresh blood, younger perspectives. You're 64, Luca. Time to think about retirement." The accounting staff pretended to look busy, but I could feel them watching. Linda Martinez, our bookkeeper for 12 years, couldn't meet my eyes. James Wright, the accounts receivable clerk, suddenly found his computer screen fascinating. "Sarah left specific instructions about the company structure," I said. "I have legal documentation." "Had," Marcus interrupted. "Past tense. Things change when the founder passes away. I've spoken with our attorneys. Everything's been reviewed." That was the first lie, but not the last. I'd helped Sarah set up every legal structure in this company. I knew exactly what her will contained, and Marcus wasn't supposed to have a controlling interest for another 5 years, not until he turned 40. "I'll be in touch with Benjamin Hayes tomorrow," I said, referring to our family attorney. "We need to clarify a few things." Marcus's smile widened. "You do that. But Luca, consider this your notice. You'll be the first one out the door in our new efficiency drive. We need team players, not old-school bureaucrats stuck in the past." I walked out without another word, but my mind was already working. 23 years in financial crimes teaches you to spot patterns, and something about this whole situation felt wrong. Marcus had always been ambitious, but this was different. This was calculated. That night, I sat in Sarah's home office and started going through the files she'd kept separate from the company records. But what I found there changed everything I thought I knew about my stepson. Sarah's private files painted a picture I'd never seen before. Not the loving mother talking about her son's potential, but a careful businesswoman documenting concerns. Marcus requested early access to his trust fund, denied pending financial responsibility demonstration, read one note dated 6 months before her death, another entry from just 2 weeks before she passed. Unusual expenses on company credit card. Asked M for receipts, evasive responses. I'd always known Marcus lived beyond his means. The BMW, the downtown apartment, the expensive suits, but I'd assumed it was normal 35-year-old excess. Sarah had been supporting him partially, supplementing his $85,000 operations manager salary with what she called family assistance. Now I was seeing the real numbers. The life insurance policy sat in the bottom drawer, $2 million, with Marcus as the sole beneficiary. Standard enough, except for the date. Sarah had updated it just 1 month before her sudden heart attack, removing me as co-beneficiary. At the time, she'd explained it as simplifying estate planning, but now it felt different. I pulled out my laptop and started cross-referencing dates. Sarah's medical records showed she'd been in perfect health 6 months ago. Her cardiologist, Dr. Kad, Elizabeth Chen, had cleared her for the company's annual hiking retreat. Then suddenly, a massive cardiac event at age 59 with no prior symptoms. The funeral had been a blur of grief and logistics, but I remembered Marcus's behavior now with new clarity. No tears at the service, immediate focus on business matters, phone calls with lawyers starting the day after we buried her. I opened Stepson Industries' financial software and began what I used to call following the breadcrumbs. Sarah had given me administrative access to everything, including the accounts Marcus didn't know I could see. The first irregularity jumped out immediately: $847,000 in consultant fees paid to a company called Strategic Solutions LLC over the past 18 months. I'd never heard of Strategic Solutions, and I'd approved every major vendor contract. I ran the EIN number through the federal database, a tool I still had access to through my retired agent credentials. Strategic Solutions LLC was incorporated in Delaware with a single director, M. Stepson. Marcus. He'd been paying himself nearly $1 million through a shell company, billing Stepson Industries for strategic consulting services while drawing his regular salary. It was textbook embezzlement, and I'd missed it because I'd trusted family. But that was just the beginning. The deeper I dug, the more wrong numbers I found. Cayman Islands bank transfers, equipment purchases that never appeared in our inventory, payments to vendors that didn't exist when I called their listed phone numbers. By 2 a.m., I had a preliminary total, $2.8 million in questionable transactions over 2 years, all authorized by Marcus using emergency spending protocols that were supposed to be for genuine crises. I sat back in Sarah's chair and tried to process what I was looking at. This wasn't just theft. This was systematic looting of the company my wife had built from nothing. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Need to discuss your transition plan. My office, 9 a.m. tomorrow. Come prepared to be reasonable. I stared at the message and felt something I hadn't experienced since my bureau days, the cold focus that comes when you realize you're hunting a predator. Marcus thought he was dealing with a grieving old man who'd roll over and disappear quietly. He had no idea he'd just made the biggest mistake of his criminal career. I forwarded copies of everything to my secure cloud storage, then started a new file on my computer. 23 years of financial investigations had taught me that successful cases are built on documentation, patience, and letting criminals hang themselves with their own arrogance. Sarah's voice seemed to echo from every corner of the office. Trust, but verify. It had been her business motto, something she'd learned from her own father's bankruptcy when poor partnerships destroyed his construction company. I'd trusted Marcus because Sarah loved him. I'd verified nothing because I thought family was different. Sarah had been smarter. The notes I'd found tonight proved she'd started documenting his behavior months before her death. She'd seen what I'd missed, but she'd died before she could act on it. Now, it was my responsibility to finish what she'd started. I locked the files away and headed upstairs, but sleep didn't come. Instead, I lay awake thinking about federal statutes and wire fraud penalties, and the look on Marcus's face when he realized his stepfather wasn't just some retired paper pusher. Marcus wanted to meet at 9 a.m. to discuss my transition plan. Perfect. I'd be there right on time, but not to negotiate my surrender. That night I found something in the books that made my blood run cold. The 9 a.m. meeting never happened the way Marcus planned. I arrived at Stepson Industries at 8:45 a.m. with a briefcase full of printouts and a digital recorder in my jacket pocket. Old habits from the bureau. Linda Martinez was already at her desk, but she avoided eye contact when I walked past. Marcus's new office, my former office, reeked of expensive cologne and fresh paint. He'd already hung his MBA diploma where Sarah's company charter used to be. Luca, good. Have a seat. Marcus didn't look up from his computer. I've prepared a generous severance package, 6 months' salary, full health benefits through the end of the year. Very fair for someone your age. I sat down and placed my briefcase on the desk. Before we discuss severance, I think we need to talk about Strategic Solutions, LLC. Marcus's fingers stopped moving on his keyboard. The silence stretched for exactly 7 seconds. I counted. Another bureau habit. I'm not familiar with that company, he said finally. Interesting. They've received $847,000 from Stepson Industries over the past 18 months. Your signature authorized every payment. Now Marcus looked at me directly. His face had gone pale under his salon tan. Luca, I think you're confused. Maybe grief is affecting your judgment. Federal EIN 88123457, incorporated in Delaware on March 15, 2023. Sole Director M. Stepson. I opened my briefcase and pulled out the incorporation documents. Would you like to see the paperwork? Marcus stood up abruptly. I don't know what you think you've found, but $2.8 million, I interrupted. That's the total I've traced so far. Fraudulent vendor payments, unauthorized equipment purchases, phantom consulting fees. Should I continue? For a moment, Marcus looked like the scared teenager I remembered from when I first married his mother. Then his expression hardened into something I recognized from my law enforcement days. The cornered criminal calculating his next move. You're making serious accusations, old man. I hope you can back them up. Oh, I can back them up. I pulled out a thick folder. Bank routing numbers, invoice discrepancies, shell company registrations. Want to know what else I found? Marcus's jaw tightened. What? Cayman Islands account number 447-891-2356, opened 2 years ago with an initial deposit of $50,000 from Strategic Solutions. Current balance, $1.9 million. The number was actually 789-234-1156, but Marcus didn't correct me. Instead, his face went from pale to flushed red. That told me everything I needed to know. He knew exactly which account I was talking about. You don't understand how business works, Marcus said, his voice rising. Those were legitimate operational expenses. Operational expenses? I stood up, and suddenly I wasn't the grieving widower anymore. I was Special Agent Reynolds, Financial Crimes Unit. A $200,000 payment to Island Consulting for strategic maritime analysis? We're a trucking company, Marcus. We don't own any boats. Marcus walked to his window, then spun back toward me. Sarah's gone, Luca. This is my company now. These decisions are mine to make. Actually, according to the Articles of Incorporation, I retain CFO authority until the board formally approves any leadership changes. That board meeting hasn't happened yet. It will. Tomorrow morning. I've already contacted the other shareholders. I smiled for the first time since entering his office. Good luck with that. I'll be very interested to hear their thoughts about the financial irregularities I've discovered. Marcus stepped closer, and for a second I thought he might try to intimidate me physically. Instead, he leaned across the desk. Listen carefully, old man. You're going to take your severance package and disappear quietly. If you try to cause trouble, you'll regret it. I have friends you don't want to meet. Friends? I closed my briefcase with a sharp snap. Marcus, I spent 23 years investigating people who thought they were untouchable. Your friends don't scare me. I walked toward the door, then paused. Oh, and Marcus, I've already forwarded copies of everything to a secure location, so if anything happens to me, or if any more money disappears from Stepson Industries, federal investigators will have a very interesting starting point. His voice followed me down the hallway. You have no idea what you're getting into, Luca. But I did know. These weren't business expenses. This was money laundering. The threatening phone call came at 11:30 that night. I was in Sarah's office, cross-referencing the Cayman accounts with U.S. bank records, when my cell phone rang. Unknown number, but I recognized the area code. Miami. Mr. Reynolds. The voice was calm, professional, with a slight Spanish accent. My name is Miguel Santos. I believe we need to talk. I'd heard that name before, buried in one of Marcus's deleted email fragments I'd recovered from the company server. Santos was connected to a logistics company that had shipped several mysterious equipment packages for Stepson Industries. I'm listening, I said, activating the recording app on my phone. Your stepson has created a problem for both of us. A financial problem that affects certain business relationships. What kind of business relationships? Santos chuckled. The kind where debts must be paid on schedule. Marcus owes my associates $1.6 million. He has been using your company to wash money for us, taking a percentage for his services. But recently, his payments have become irregular. Money laundering. I'd suspected it, but hearing it confirmed still hit like a punch to the stomach. Marcus hadn't just been stealing from Stepson Industries. He'd been using Sarah's company to clean drug money. I'm not responsible for Marcus's debts, I said. Perhaps not legally, but practically, Marcus has convinced my associates that you are an obstacle to resolving this situation. He says you are preventing him from accessing company funds. The threat was clear, but Santos delivered it like a weather report. What exactly are you asking me to do? Step aside, let Marcus handle the company finances without interference. My associates will collect what they're owed, and you can continue your retirement in peace. I thought about Sarah, about the company she'd built through honest work and careful planning. Now I was being asked to let criminals use it as their personal ATM. And if I refuse? Mr. Reynolds, you spent many years in law enforcement. You understand that some problems solve themselves when left alone. Others require more direct intervention. The line went dead. I sat in the dark for a long time, thinking about the conversation. Santos had known about my FBI background, which meant Marcus had briefed him thoroughly. This wasn't a random extortion. It was a coordinated pressure campaign. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Check your front porch. I grabbed the baseball bat I kept by the bedroom door and carefully looked out the front window. A manila envelope sat on the doormat, but I didn't see anyone in the street. Inside the envelope was a single photograph. Me leaving Stepson Industries that morning, taken with a telephoto lens from across the street. On the back, someone had written, "We know where you live." They were trying to scare me into compliance. Classic intimidation tactics, designed to make me feel isolated and vulnerable, but they'd made a crucial mistake. I walked back to Sarah's office and pulled out a business card I hadn't used in 2 years. Agent Claire Mitchell, DEA Financial Intelligence Unit. We'd worked together on several joint FBI-DEA operations, tracking money laundering through legitimate businesses. Claire answered on the second ring despite the late hour. "Luca, Jesus, I heard about Sarah. I'm so sorry." "Thanks, Claire. Listen, I need to ask you something off the record. Are you familiar with anyone named Miguel Santos, operates out of Miami?" There was a pause. "Santos? Yeah, he's on our watch list. Mid-level money launderer for the Medellin pipeline. Why are you asking?" I took a deep breath. "Because I think my stepson has been washing money for him through my wife's company." "Holy shit. Luca, are you sure?" "I've got bank records, shell companies, Cayman accounts, and Santos just called me personally with what sounded like a threat." Another pause, longer this time. "Luca, if what you're telling me is true, you could be in real danger. These people don't mess around." "I know, that's why I'm calling you." "What do you need?" "Wire authorization. I want to record my conversations with Marcus and anyone else who contacts me. If I'm going to take these people down, I need admissible evidence." Claire was quiet for almost 30 seconds. "You're talking about going undercover against your own family." Marcus stopped being family the moment he started using Sarah's company to launder drug money. "All right, give me 12 hours. I'll need to run this up the chain, but with your background and the Santos connection, I think I can get approval. Can you handle yourself until then?" "I've been handling myself for 64 years. "Good. Luca, be careful who you trust. If Marcus is working with Santos, he might have other people inside the company feeding him information." After Claire hung up, I walked through the house, checking locks and drawing curtains. Tomorrow, Marcus would expect me to back down, to take his money and disappear quietly. Instead, I was going to give him enough rope to hang himself. But first, I needed to stay alive long enough to make the case. Then I realized Marcus wasn't just stealing, he was washing drug money. Claire called back at 6:47 a.m. with news that changed everything. "Wire authorization 4A22156 has been approved," she said. "Federal court in Portland signed off 2 hours ago. 30-day surveillance window for suspected money laundering investigation." I was already dressed and drinking my first cup of coffee. Old habits. In the bureau, we always started early when working active cases. What's the coverage scope? Any conversations with Marcus Thompson or known associates? Santos is already on our FISA surveillance, so if he contacts you again, we'll have both ends. The tech team will be at your house in 2 hours to install the equipment. Equipment? Nothing too invasive. Wire transmitter, backup recording device, GPS tracker for your car, standard undercover package, modified for civilian use. The words sent a familiar chill down my spine. I'd worn surveillance equipment dozens of times during bureau operations, but never against family. Claire, I need to ask you something. If this goes sideways, if Marcus figures out what I'm doing, you'll have full federal protection, DEA, FBI, U.S. Marshals if necessary. But Luca, don't let it go sideways. These cartels have long memories and short tempers. 2 hours later, Agent David Kim and technical specialist Patricia Walsh were in my living room, turning me into a walking surveillance station. The wire was smaller than I remembered from my active days, a device no bigger than a shirt button that clipped inside my jacket. Recording quality is crystal clear up to 30 feet, Kim explained. The backup device in your watch will capture anything the primary misses. GPS tracker goes under your car's rear bumper. If you're in trouble, we'll know exactly where you are. Walsh handed me a modified cell phone. Emergency contact is speed dial 1. Press and hold the volume buttons together for 3 seconds if you need immediate extraction. After they left, I sat in Sarah's office and tried to process what I'd committed to. In 6 hours, I'd gone from grieving widower to active federal informant. The transition felt surreal, like stepping back into a life I'd left behind years ago. My phone rang at 10:15. Marcus, Luca, we need to talk. Today, my office, 2 p.m. About what? About your conversation with certain people last night. Yeah, I know about that. You've attracted some unwanted attention. The wire was already recording. I could picture Claire and her team listening from their surveillance van. I don't know what you're talking about, Marcus. Cut the bullshit. Santos told me you two had a nice chat. Said you seemed unreasonable about helping resolve a simple business matter. Santos called me, not the other way around. He made some pretty interesting claims about Thompson Industries being used for money laundering. Silence for several seconds. Then, Luca, you need to understand something. This situation's bigger than you realize. There are people involved who don't care about your FBI pension or your moral high ground. They care about money and they want their debts settled. What debts, Marcus? What exactly did you get Thompson Industries involved in? Nothing illegal, just some creative financing arrangements. International logistics can be complicated. Creative financing? You mean washing drug money through fake vendor payments? The line went quiet except for Marcus's breathing. I could almost hear him calculating how much I knew. Where are you getting this information? I'm a forensic accountant, Marcus. Following money trails was my job for 23 years. Your former job. You're retired now, remember? Time to act like it. Is that a threat? It's advice. Good advice. The kind that might keep you healthy. I looked at my reflection in Sarah's office window, seeing the wire's tiny lens reflected in my jacket. Marcus, let me ask you something. When your mother died, were you already working with Santos? Another long pause. What the hell is that supposed to mean? It means Sarah started documenting unusual company expenses 6 months before she passed. It means she was asking questions about your activities. It means maybe her heart attack wasn't as random as we thought. You son of a bitch. Marcus's voice turned ice cold. Are you accusing me of killing my own mother? I'm asking questions. The kind federal investigators ask when money laundering and suspicious deaths overlap. Federal investigators? His voice cracked slightly. Luca, what did you do? I did what any responsible CFO would do when discovering $2.8 million in fraudulent transactions. I documented everything and contacted appropriate authorities. The silence stretched for nearly 20 seconds. You have no idea what you've done, Marcus finally said. These people don't care about federal investigations or due process or any of that legal bullshit. They care about results. Then maybe you should have thought about that before you started stealing from your mother's company. This isn't over, Luca. Cancel that 2 p.m. meeting. We'll talk when you're ready to be reasonable. The line went dead. I sat back in Sarah's chair and tried to steady my breathing. The conversation had gone exactly as I'd hoped. Marcus had essentially confessed to money laundering and implied threats against my safety. All recorded in crystal clear digital audio. My secure phone buzzed with a text from Claire. Beautiful work. That recording just became the foundation of our case. But I wasn't feeling victorious. I was feeling scared, because Marcus was right about one thing. The people he was working with didn't care about legal procedures. They solved problems with violence, and I'd just made myself a very big problem. Claire's voice was ice cold when she called 5 minutes later. Luca, we're going federal on this. The wire recording session took place 3 days later in the Stepson Industries parking lot. Marcus had suggested meeting at the warehouse. Neutral ground, he called it. I knew he wanted privacy to say things he wouldn't risk in the main office. I arrived at 7:30 p.m., 30 minutes after the last employee had gone home. The parking lot was empty except for Marcus's BMW and a black SUV I didn't recognize. The warehouse was dark except for emergency lighting. Marcus was waiting near the loading dock, smoking a cigarette, a habit he'd hidden from Sarah. You came, he said. I wasn't sure you would. I'm here to listen. Marcus flicked his cigarette into the darkness. Good, because what I'm about to tell you could save both our lives. I kept my hands relaxed at my sides, conscious of the wire transmitting every word to Claire's surveillance team positioned 2 blocks away. The Santos organization isn't just some small-time operation, Luca. They're connected to the Medellin pipeline, major players moving $50 million monthly through legitimate businesses across the southeast. And Stepson Industries is one of those businesses? Was, past tense. I've been trying to extricate us for months, but they don't make it easy to quit. Marcus walked to a shipping container and leaned against it. In the dim light, he looked older than his 35 years. It started small. Santos approached me 2 years ago with a simple proposition. Use our trucking routes to transport certain packages, no questions asked, $10,000 per shipment. Easy money for what seemed like minimal risk. What kind of packages? I told myself I didn't want to know. But I knew, Luca. Deep down, I knew exactly what we were moving. The admission hung in the air between us. I thought about Sarah, about how she would have reacted to learning her company was being used to transport drugs. How did it escalate to money laundering? Marcus laughed bitterly. Escalate? It started as money laundering. The packages were just misdirection. The real business was cleaning cash through our invoicing system. Fake vendor payments, phantom equipment purchases, inflated shipping costs, everything you found in those files. $2.8 million worth. That's just what went through Stepson Industries. I was managing the books for 3 other companies in the network. My cut was 8% of everything we processed. 8% of $50 million monthly. Marcus had been earning $400,000 per month on top of his company salary. Where did it go wrong? I got greedy, started skimming from the cartel money, thinking they'd never notice small discrepancies across multiple companies, but Santos keeps very detailed records. How much did you skim? Marcus looked directly at me for the first time since I'd arrived. Total? About $1.6 million over 18 months? Jesus, Marcus. I was going to pay it back. That's why I needed to take control of Stepson Industries after Mom died. The life insurance money, plus liquidating some company assets, would have covered what I owed. But I got in the way. You got in the way. I thought about the phone call from Santos, about the photograph on my doorstep. So Santos decided I was the problem. Santos doesn't make those kinds of decisions. He reports to people in Miami who report to people in Colombia. When word came down that the debt needed to be collected immediately, Santos gave me 2 choices: pay what I owed, or they'd collect it from Stepson Industries directly. Meaning they'd seize company assets, liquidate everything, and probably kill anyone who could connect them to the operation. The warehouse felt suddenly colder, including Sarah's stepson who discovered the money laundering. Including him. Marcus pulled out another cigarette but didn't light it. There's something else, Luca. Something I need you to understand. I'm listening. The heart attack. Mom's death. It wasn't natural. Every muscle in my body tensed. What are you saying? I'm saying the cartel doesn't leave loose ends. Mom started asking too many questions about company finances. She wanted to bring in outside auditors, review all our vendor contracts. Santos couldn't risk that level of scrutiny. Are you telling me they murdered Sarah? Marcus finally lit his cigarette with shaking hands. I'm telling you, they made her death look like natural causes. And they'll do the same to you if you don't stop digging into things that don't concern you. The wire was capturing everything, but I felt sick listening to Marcus describe my wife's murder like it was an unfortunate business expense. You knew they killed her and you didn't say anything? What could I say? Who was going to believe me? And if I tried to expose them, I'd be next. So you decided to steal her company instead. I decided to survive. Marcus's voice echoed off the warehouse walls. The cartel doesn't care about grief or family loyalty or any of that bullshit. They care about money, and they want their debts settled. He took a long drag from his cigarette. That's why I'm offering you a deal, Luca. Help me liquidate enough company assets to pay Santos, and I'll make sure you get a fair share of what's left. We can both walk away from this. And if I refuse? Marcus dropped his cigarette and ground it under his heel. Then Santos will handle the situation his way, and neither of us will walk away from anything. I stood in the darkness of my wife's warehouse, listening to her son propose that we rob her company to pay off the people who murdered her. I need time to think about it, I said finally. 24 hours, that's all the time Santos is willing to give. As I walked back to my car, Marcus called after me. Luca, they know about your FBI background. Don't try to be a hero. Heroes end up dead. But what he said next made me reach for my service weapon. The next morning brought a call that changed everything. Dr. Rachel Porter, the medical examiner who had handled Sarah's autopsy, wanted to meet privately. There's something about your wife's case I need to discuss, she said. Something that couldn't go in the official report. We met at a small coffee shop downtown, away from the medical examiner's office. Rachel had been a friend since my bureau days. We'd worked together on several suspicious death investigations. Luca, I need you to understand that what I'm about to tell you is off the record. Officially, Sarah's death was cardiac arrest due to natural causes. But unofficially? Rachel pulled out a manila folder and slid it across the table. Unofficially, I found traces of ricin in her system. My hands went cold. Ricin poisoning was a professional assassination method. Odorless, tasteless, nearly undetectable unless you knew what to look for. How much? Enough to cause cardiac arrest within 6 to 8 hours of ingestion. Someone with access to her food or drink administered it the night before she died. I thought about Sarah's last evening. She'd had dinner at home, just the two of us. But Marcus had stopped by around 8 p.m. with coffee from her favorite cafe, a weekly tradition he'd maintained for years. Why didn't this go in your report? Rachel looked around the coffee shop, then leaned closer. Because 24 hours after I identified the ricin, I received a visit from 2 men claiming to be federal agents. They showed me credentials and explained that Sarah's death was part of an ongoing investigation. They said including the ricin findings would compromise national security. Did you verify their credentials? I tried. The badge numbers didn't match any federal agents in the system. By the time I realized they were fake, the case had been officially closed, and my files were sealed by court order. Rachel slid another document across the table. But I kept copies. Chain of custody records, toxicology results, tissue samples, everything needed to prove Sarah was murdered. I stared at the evidence that my wife had been poisoned, probably by her own son, and that someone had gone to great lengths to cover it up. Rachel, who else knows about this? Just me, you, and whoever sent those fake agents. Luca, if this is connected to something bigger, you could be in real danger. That afternoon, I was working in Sarah's office when my cell phone rang. Marcus. Did you think about my offer? I'm still considering it. Well, consider faster. Santos is getting impatient, and when he gets impatient, bad things happen to good people. What kind of bad things? Marcus's voice took on a casual tone that chilled my blood. Heart attacks are so common in men your age, Luca. All that stress from losing a spouse, financial worries, family conflicts. Sometimes the heart just stops. Is that what happened to Sarah? Silence for several seconds. Then, Sarah died of natural causes. The medical examiner confirmed it. The medical examiner found ricin in her system. I heard Marcus's sharp intake of breath. That's impossible. The official report said cardiac arrest. The official report was modified after federal agents visited Dr. Porter. Except they weren't really federal agents, were they? More silence. I could almost hear Marcus calculating how much I knew and how much trouble he was in. Luca, you're playing with fire. Stop digging into things that are already buried. Sarah was murdered, Marcus, poisoned by someone who had access to her food and drink, someone she trusted. You don't know what you're talking about. I know exactly what I'm talking about. Ricin poisoning, administered in coffee from her favorite cafe, coffee that her loving son brought her every week for 3 years. The line went quiet except for Marcus's breathing. You can't prove anything, he said finally. Actually, I can. Dr. Porter kept copies of everything before your fake federal agents tried to bury the evidence. Toxicology reports, tissue samples, chain of custody documentation, everything needed to prove Sarah was murdered. Luca, listen to me very carefully. You need to stop this investigation right now. Sarah's death was unfortunate, but it's over. Done. If you keep pushing, you're going to join her. Are you threatening to kill me, Marcus? I'm trying to save your life. The people I work with don't leave loose ends. If they think you're a threat to their operation, they'll eliminate you, just like they eliminated Mom when she started asking too many questions. There it was, a full confession to conspiracy in Sarah's murder. So you admit she was killed? I admit that she wouldn't stop digging into company finances, and Santos doesn't tolerate that kind of curiosity from anyone. Did you personally poison her, or did you just provide the access? Marcus's voice broke slightly. It wasn't supposed to happen that way. Santos said they would just scare her, make her back off. I didn't know they were going to kill her until it was too late. But you helped them cover it up. I helped them avoid a murder investigation that would have exposed the entire operation and gotten us all killed. The conversation was being recorded by federal agents, but I felt no satisfaction in hearing Marcus confess to his mother's murder, only rage and disgust. What about me, Marcus? Am I next on their list? That depends on you. Take the deal I offered. Help me pay off Santos and we can both walk away alive. Keep investigating and you'll end up like Mom. And if I take your deal, then you live. You take your share of the money and disappear quietly. Maybe move somewhere warm, enjoy your retirement. I thought about the life insurance policy. $2 million with Marcus as the beneficiary. If I died, he'd have enough money to pay Santos and start over somewhere else. I need more time to think. You don't have more time. Santos wants an answer tonight. 8 p.m. the warehouse. Come alone and bring your decision. After he hung up, I sat in Sarah's chair and tried to process what I'd learned. My wife had been murdered by cartel assassins with her own son's help. Now Marcus was planning to kill me for the insurance money, probably using the same method. But Marcus had made one crucial mistake. That's when I realized I wasn't just fighting for the company. I was fighting for my life. Claire's response to the recorded confession was swift and decisive. We're setting up a controlled operation, she said during our emergency meeting at a safe house downtown. Full surveillance, tactical support, and audio/video documentation of everything that happens at tonight's meeting. Agent Kim spread blueprints of the Thompson Industries warehouse across the conference table. We'll have teams positioned here, here, and here. He pointed to locations around the building. Invisible from ground level, but with clear sightlines and audio pickup. What about my safety? I asked. Claire pulled out a modified bulletproof vest. Level 2IA protection, designed to look like a regular jacket. Plus, the enhanced wire system will let us monitor your vital signs in real time. If your heart rate spikes, or we detect any physical distress, tactical teams move in immediately. Agent Walsh handed me a small device that looked like a hearing aid. Emergency beacon. Press it once. We extract you within 90 seconds. Press it twice. Full tactical response. I thought about Sarah, about the ricin in her coffee, about Marcus confessing to conspiracy in her murder. What if Santos brings backup? What if this turns into a shootout? Then we handle it, Claire said simply. Luca, You've given us enough evidence to prosecute Marcus for money laundering, conspiracy to commit murder, and about 6 other federal crimes. Tonight is about getting Santos on record and mapping his organization. And if something goes wrong, nothing will go wrong. You're not alone in this anymore. At 6 p.m., I drove to the warehouse district. The tactical teams were already in position, invisible but reassuring. My modified cell phone showed 4 green dots on a map, each representing a federal agent with eyes on the building. At 7:45, a black SUV pulled into the parking lot. Santos got out first, followed by 2 men in expensive suits who moved like professional bodyguards. Marcus arrived 5 minutes later in his BMW. I waited until exactly 8 p.m. before walking into the warehouse. "Mr. Reynolds," Santos nodded as I approached. "Punctual. I appreciate that in a man." The bodyguards positioned themselves near the exits while Marcus paced nervously near the loading dock. "Marcus tells me you've been asking questions about your wife's death," Santos continued. "Questions that make my associates uncomfortable." "I've been asking questions about my company's finances. Sarah's death was just context." Santos smiled coldly. "Context. Yes, context is important. Would you like to know the context of why your wife died?" The wire was recording everything, but I felt my heart rate climbing. "I'm listening." She discovered that Stepson Industries was processing certain financial transactions. Instead of discussing this discovery privately with her son, she decided to involve outside auditors. That created a problem for my organization. "So you solved the problem by murdering her?" "We solved the problem by removing an obstacle to ongoing business operations. Your wife's death was unfortunate but necessary." Santos walked closer, close enough that I could smell his cologne. "Tonight, you have the opportunity to avoid her fate. Marcus has explained our arrangement. You help liquidate company assets to settle his debt, and you receive compensation for your cooperation." "How much compensation?" "Enough to live comfortably for the rest of your natural life, which could be quite long if you make the right decision tonight." Marcus stepped forward. "Luca, this is the deal I was talking about. Take it, please." I looked at Marcus, Sarah's son, who had helped arrange his mother's murder and was now trying to arrange mine. The wire captured every word as I responded. "I have a counter-proposal." Santos raised an eyebrow. "I'm listening." "You and your organization disappear from Stepson Industries immediately. You write off Marcus's debt and never contact any of us again. In exchange, I don't turn over evidence of money laundering, conspiracy to commit murder, and racketeering to federal authorities." Santos laughed. "Mr. Reynolds, you seem to misunderstand your situation. You're not in a position to make demands." "Actually, I think I am." Santos's expression shifted from amusement to concern. "What makes you think that?" I smiled and pulled out my cell phone, showing the active recording app. "Because for the past 10 minutes, you've been confessing to capital crimes while federal agents listen to every word. Time to see if 23 years in the Bureau taught me anything about catching killers." Santos's hand moved toward his jacket, but Marcus grabbed his arm. "Wait, he's bluffing. There's no way federal agents are here." "Are we sure about that?" I asked, keeping my voice steady despite my racing heart. "Because Agent Claire Mitchell, DEA Financial Intelligence Unit, has been investigating your money laundering operation for the past week, with my full cooperation." Santos's bodyguards were already moving, hands inside their jackets, but Santos held up a hand to stop them. "Show me proof," he demanded. I pressed a button on my phone. Claire's voice came through the speaker. "This is Agent Mitchell, DEA. We have the building surrounded. All exits are covered." The warehouse erupted in motion. One bodyguard rushed toward the loading dock exit, while the other moved toward Marcus's position. Santos himself backed towards a side door, talking rapidly in Spanish on his cell phone. "Nobody's going anywhere," Claire's amplified voice echoed from outside the building. "Federal agents, exit the building with your hands visible." Marcus looked at me with something between rage and desperation. "You son of a bitch, you've killed us both. I've saved us both. The only question now is whether you cooperate with federal prosecutors or spend the rest of your life in prison." Santos reappeared from his position near the side door. "The building is surrounded. Professional operation. at least 12 agents in tactical gear. So, what now? Marcus asked. Santos smiled coldly. Now we negotiate. Mr. Reynolds, you have federal protection, yes? But what happens when that protection ends? My organization has long reach and longer memory. Your organization is about to be dismantled piece by piece, I replied. The money laundering network, the shell companies, the transportation routes, we have everything. You have evidence of financial crimes. You don't have the organization. Santos was right, and we both knew it. Taking down a few money laundering operations wouldn't destroy the cartel infrastructure. But we have you, I pointed out, and you know where all the bodies are buried. I know nothing. I am a simple businessman who provides logistics consulting. Marcus stepped between us. This is insane. Santos, cut a deal with them. Tell them what they want to know about the larger operation. What I know could get me killed in any federal prison in the country. What you don't tell them will definitely get you life without parole. Santos considered this for several seconds while his bodyguards watched the exits nervously. Perhaps we can reach an understanding, he said finally. I provide information about money laundering networks in exchange for protection and reduced charges. That's not my decision to make, I said, but I can put you in touch with people who can make that deal. Claire's voice came through my phone again. Mr. Santos, this is Agent Mitchell. We'd like to discuss a potential cooperation agreement. Are you willing to surrender peacefully and begin negotiations? Santos looked at his bodyguards, then at Marcus, then at me. I am willing to discuss terms. Good. Exit the building through the main entrance with your hands visible. Your associates should do the same. Santos nodded to his bodyguards, who started walking toward the main exit. Marcus looked like he was about to collapse. What about me? Marcus asked. What kind of deal can I get? That depends on how much you cooperate, I told him. Start by telling them everything you know about Sarah's murder. I already told you everything. You told me you helped them cover it up. I want details about who administered the poison, who provided the ricin, who arranged the fake federal agents that visited Dr. Porter. Marcus sat down heavily on a shipping crate. The ricin came from Santos's organization. Professional grade, untraceable. One of his people poses as a delivery driver from the coffee shop, adds it to Mom's regular order. Who was the delivery driver? I don't know his real name. Santos called him El Doctor because he specialized in making deaths look natural. And the fake federal agents? Local muscle hired to intimidate the medical examiner. Santos has contacts in security companies who can provide fake credentials and official-looking paperwork. The warehouse was filling with federal agents now, tactical teams, evidence specialists, financial crimes investigators. Santos and his bodyguards were being processed for arrest while Marcus sat under guard, looking older than his 35 years. Claire approached me with a satisfied expression. Outstanding work, Luca. The recordings from tonight, combined with the financial evidence you've gathered, give us everything we need for multiple federal prosecutions. What happens to Thompson Industries? Asset forfeiture will freeze the accounts that were used for money laundering, but the legitimate business operations should be protected. You'll probably have to bring in new management and undergo federal oversight for a while. I thought about Sarah, about the company she'd built and the legacy she'd wanted to leave. The company survives? The company survives. And more importantly, so do you. As Marcus was led away in handcuffs, he looked back at me one last time. This isn't over, Luca. There are people above Santos who won't forget what happened here. But I wasn't worried about threats anymore. Marcus looked at my corpse and said the words that sealed his fate. The envelope arrived 3 weeks later, delivered by Benjamin Hayes with an expression I'd never seen on our family attorney's face, something between amazement and vindication. Luca, you need to sit down for this. We were in his downtown office, surrounded by law books, and the quiet efficiency of a practice built over 30 years. Benjamin had been Sarah's attorney since she founded Thompson Industries, but what he pulled from his briefcase was completely unexpected. Sarah came to see me 2 months before she died. She was concerned about Marcus's behavior and wanted to make changes to her estate planning. He handed me a legal document I'd never seen before, Amendment to the Sarah Michelle Reynolds Trust, executed February 15th, 2024. I read the first page twice before the implications sank in. She changed everything? Everything. The original will left Thompson Industries to Marcus, with you receiving the house and a modest cash inheritance. This amendment reverses that completely. According to the new trust document, I was the primary beneficiary of Thompson Industries, including all assets, intellectual property, and controlling interest in the company. Marcus received only a $50,000 cash bequest and no ownership stake. Why didn't this come up during the original probate? Benjamin looked uncomfortable. Because Sarah instructed me to withhold this amendment unless specific conditions were met. Conditions that seemed unlikely at the time. What conditions? First, that Marcus attempt to take control of the company through illegal means. Second, that he engage in financial crimes using company resources. Third, that he pose a threat to your safety or well-being. I stared at the document, seeing Sarah's signature and the notary stamps that made it legally binding. Somehow she knew what Marcus was planning. Sarah was always an excellent judge of character. She told me that Marcus had been acting strangely, asking too many questions about the company's financial structure and her life insurance policies. She suspected he was planning something, but hoped she was wrong. Benjamin pulled out another folder. There's more. Sarah also established a whistleblower protection fund, $500,000 from her personal savings to be awarded to anyone who exposed financial crimes within Thompson Industries. She set up a reward for turning in her own son. She set up a reward for protecting the company she built. Sarah knew that if Marcus was involved in criminal activity, it would eventually surface. She wanted to make sure the right person was incentivized to come forward. The $500,000 whistleblower reward, combined with my inheritance of Thompson Industries and its $6 million valuation, meant I was suddenly a very wealthy man. But more than that, I was vindicated. There's one final element, Benjamin said, handing me a sealed letter with "For Luca," written in Sarah's handwriting. I opened it carefully, seeing her words for the first time since her death. Luca. If you're reading this, it means my worst fears about Marcus have come true. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you from what he was planning, but I hope this trust amendment helps you rebuild what he tried to destroy. Thompson Industries was always meant to be your company as much as mine. Use it well. Love, Sarah, P.S. The coffee shop on 5th Street has security cameras that record everything. If something happens to me, check the footage from my last visit. Security footage? I already contacted the coffee shop. They keep recordings for 6 months. The footage from the night Sarah died shows Marcus tampering with her order, adding something to the coffee while the barista was distracted. Video evidence of Marcus poisoning his mother, combined with the federal recordings of him confessing to conspiracy in her murder, it was enough to guarantee a life sentence. I sat in Benjamin's office holding Sarah's final letter and realized she had orchestrated her own justice from beyond the grave. She'd anticipated Marcus's betrayal, documented his crimes, and ensured that he would face consequences for what he'd done. Sarah knew exactly what her son was, and she made sure justice would be served. 6 months later, I stood in the renovated conference room at Thompson Industries, looking at the plaque Sarah would have loved. The Thompson Foundation for Financial Crime Victims, established 2024. Marcus had been sentenced to 25 years in federal prison. Santos received 15 years in exchange for his cooperation in dismantling 3 major money laundering networks. The cartel's southeast operations were crippled, at least temporarily. Thompson Industries had survived the federal investigation and emerged stronger. We'd hired a new management team, implemented strict financial oversight protocols, and dedicated 20% of our annual profits to the Victim Assistance Foundation. The company was worth $8, $2 million now, growth built on legitimate contracts and ethical business practices, exactly as Sarah had envisioned. Claire stopped by occasionally to update me on the ongoing investigations. Santos's cooperation had led to dozens of arrests and the seizure of $47 million in drug proceeds. The ripple effects would continue for years. "Any regrets?" she asked during her last visit. I thought about Marcus, about the young man I'd tried to mentor becoming the criminal who murdered his mother. I regret that it came to this, But I don't regret seeking justice. Sarah would be proud. She would be. The foundation had already helped 37 families recover from financial crimes. Elderly couples who'd lost their retirement savings, small businesses destroyed by embezzlement, victims of identity theft and fraud. Every case reminded me why Sarah had built Thompson Industries in the first place, to create something good in the world, something that helped people rather than exploiting them. I kept her office exactly as she'd left it, except for one addition, a photo of us from our last anniversary, taken just 3 months before she died. She looked happy, healthy, completely unaware that her son was planning her murder. But she'd been smarter than all of us. The trust amendment, the whistleblower fund, the security camera footage, she'd built a web of protection that ensured justice would be served, even after she was gone. The threats from Santos's organization never materialized. Federal protection helped, but I think the real reason was simpler. Taking revenge against a federal informant who'd helped dismantle their money laundering network would have brought too much attention from law enforcement. Some people say retirement is the end. For me, it was just the beginning. Every morning I came to work knowing that Thompson Industries was clean, ethical, and dedicated to helping others. Everything Sarah had dreamed it could be. Justice had been served, not through revenge, but through patience, evidence, and the legal system working exactly as it was designed. If you've ever been the victim of financial crime, or if you know someone who has, share this story. And if you've ever lived in a city with an FBI field office, drop the name in the comments below. Justice never sleeps, but sometimes it retires, and that's when the real work begins.